and Michelle. Here at Healthy Ever After, we discuss the health and wellness journey, bringing up important topics while striving to live our healthiest lives. We'll bring special guests each time, experts who can answer your questions in real time. Drop your thoughts and questions into the comment section and let's spark healthy conversation together. I'm Michelle, an expert coach with Teladoc Health, specializing in health and wellness coaching and working within our diabetes, hypertension, and weight management programs.
Hello, everyone. I'm Grace Silverio, Director of Solution Strategy and the subject matter expert for all things chronic conditions for Teladoc Health. I'm also a registered nurse by background and a certified diabetes care and education specialist.
Awesome. So today we have a very special guest for the first Healthier Ever After of the year, Dr. Vidya Raman. She's a mother, physician, innovator, and even a singer. She has also been the Chief Medical Officer at Teladoc Health since 2022. Vidya thrives at the intersection of health and technology, leveraging data-driven insights to drive health outcomes. Welcome to Healthier Ever After.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Vidya.
Hi there.
Today we're talking about cardiometabolic health. Many of us know this to be the heart of health and your metabolism, or dealing with heart health and metabolism, but it's a lot more than that, especially when we talk about the integration of the two. Can you help us understand what are cardiometabolic diseases and how do these impact our overall wellness?
Certainly. So cardiometabolic diseases are a cluster or a group of conditions that affect the cardiovascular system and organs that maintain metabolic health in the body, right? So from a cardiovascular system standpoint, they include diseases like ischemic heart disease, coronary vascular disease, heart attacks as we know them, heart failure, stroke, vascular insufficiencies presenting elsewhere in the body. And on the metabolic side, they include conditions like type 2 diabetes, which is either due to a reduction in the production of insulin from pancreas or a decreased sensitivity on the part of the body to respond to insulin, or a combination of the two. It also includes chronic kidney disease, damage to the kidney, which impairs its ability to filter waste out of the body, causing toxicity, causing buildup. Last but not the least, liver. Buildup of fat in the liver, what we know as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And then when that same fat starts to cause inflammation and liver damage, it leads to NASH, which is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Terminology aside, think of these as a set of diseases that happen to organs that rely on one another to keep us healthy. So when something goes wrong with one of them, it starts to have a cascading effect on another. So to give you an example, if the heart's not functioning optimally, it's putting out less blood than it's normally supposed to. Amongst all the other organs, the kidney as well receives less blood supply. The kidney needs strong, reliable, good blood supply to do its job of filtering waste out of the body. So now, because the heart's not functioning normally, the kidney is not able to function normally, and it leads to problems. So that's how you think of this set of conditions, as they're very, very closely connected. They all tend to be chronic, they're often preventable, and they share a set of common risk factors.
Yeah. I mean, hearing how many different parts there are to it and how all-encompassing it is, it's just every single category all being rolled up into one human. It's just so wild to hear what cardiometabolic actually means. Yeah, I mean, because when it comes to members, especially specifically those with chronic conditions, they're often told to be aware of their heart health, right? We hear the word cardio, we automatically think heart. So we know that the systems in our body are connected, but could you explain, what do we mean by shared risk factors?
Yeah, sure. So these conditions, they share a set of common risk factors, including obesity, uncontrolled high blood pressure, uncontrolled elevated blood glucose, and what we call hyperlipidemia or dyslipidemia. So elevated lipids, the wrong lipids, and so on and so forth. It's important to know that each of these risk factors can have an independent effect on cardiometabolic health, or they can gang up and work together and cause an even greater damage. So same goes, whether it's health or disease, right? When you address them all together, it's far greater state of health. But when they go wrong and they start to work with one another, they cause a greater damage. So again, to give you an example, We said high blood pressure, uncontrolled high blood pressure is a risk. Long-standing uncontrolled high blood pressure tends to cause narrowing of blood vessels in the body. Earlier, I was talking about how the kidney needs to receive its, amount of blood supply. So this narrowing can diminish the blood supply to the kidneys, preventing it from doing its own job. If the same blood vessels also have deposits of lipids, atherosclerosis in them, there's further narrowing, there's further compromise of normal blood supply. So the damage tends to be greater. So they are shared risk factors that can either work independently, or they can, they work together to either maintain a state of health or to cause the disease states that as we know them. But the good news is that all these risk factors map to a common set of lifestyle factors. That is where we can now start to do something. We can control as people, as individuals, consumers, and patients, start to work on those modifiable risk factors, including nutrition, activity, sleep, stress, smoking, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, very helpful, Vidya. As Teladoc Health, we're very focused on integrated care. Does it address your initial explanation of cardiometabolic health?
100%. So here's how I see it, right? We intentionally connect our products, programs, and offerings, right? We have a program for weight, we have one for blood pressure, we have high blood pressure, and then we have a diabetes program. We all know that. We're part of the organization, and we connect them deliberately for this very reason, right? To provide the comprehensive care. Secondly, we take a very unified and comprehensive approach also to helping people manage those lifestyle factors. So working with them on nutrition at the same time as we're probably working with them on sleep, at the same time that we're working with them on their mental health and well-being. Mental health is equally important on all of these things. So we take that concerted, unified approach to helping people manage those lifestyle factors. We take a very long-term view. We don't just focus on near-term immediate goals, but the cardiometabolic health is about long-term optimal health. So we work with patients, consumers, whether it's prevention or management in a long-term way so that you can achieve those optimal health outcomes. We personalize this journey. Yes, it's cardiometabolic health and cardiometabolic disease, but it tends to differ from person to person. Now, no two of us are identical. And so we leverage data and we really personalize the care for people. And last but not the least, I'd say that while we do, we connect everything that we have, we bring our assets to bear, we also partner externally. We partner with the, individuals, doctors and specialists and testing centers so that the care that we ultimately deliver is comprehensive. Our ultimate responsibility is that, right? I mean, it's to deliver the optimal care for patients. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. It's not a one size fits all, and we have to take different cultures, ethnicities, budgets into consideration. And we do a great job at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I say it multiple times in coaching sessions. It's the whole person approach, right? And it's finding that individual lifestyle factor that works for the person, right? Not every single human being is the same, right? We have similar organs, but every single person and their success story is different. Vidya, something you mentioned that kind of resonated with me is it's for the long term, right? We're looking for long-term overall health. And when I'm working with a member, I'll have someone, maybe I ask them why what made you sign up for coaching today? And they'll say, well, I want to lower my blood pressure, but really digging into the why behind that. And then coming to find out they want to be healthy so they can run around with their grandkids. It's just, that's why we do what we do. It's that whole person approach. So, but historically, you mentioned mental health. And I did want to bring that up because mental health hasn't always been considered when assessing someone's physical health. But mental health is a topic that often comes up in conversation with members. Why should mental health be a priority in the same way that our physical health is a priority?
Big question, very important question. And you just went there when you're talking of, being able to do things in your life, right? And run around, play with your kids, grandkids, what have you. Listen, life, in my mind, life and health are inseparable. We experience life, whether it's everyday life or those big changes in life, with body, mind, and soul. We don't separate things out. So to me, it's almost impossible to peel these apart. I don't know about you all, but I rely on a daily dose of optimism, confidence, resilience, the ability to navigate adversity and whatnot, right? And I know we're all calling upon those in a manner that we don't even realize. But when things start to get too much, right, that's when symptoms start to appear, signs start to appear. And we know that people, when they're diagnosed with like clinical anxiety, clinical depression, it puts them at high risk for those risk factors that I just talked about, for developing high blood pressure, gaining weight, having elevated blood glucose. Vice versa is also true. Somebody may be diagnosed with a cardiovascular illness or a risk factor, and they are at a high risk for developing anxiety and depression. So it's important for us we know this. Science already tells us this. So the most important thing here is to be proactive about addressing everything in unison, not waiting for something to go wrong, and it's not hard to do. We actually embed mental health assessments within our management of chronic conditions. So this is the reason, is that we don't wait until something goes wrong. And there is something called mental health and well-being that I think all of us can work on. And so that's something that we try to focus on, even if there isn't a clinical diagnosis.
Yeah, when life is lifing, it can throw us off, right? There's a lot that
I'll
can
steal
happen.
that one. Life is life.
Life is life.
I think I got that from my kids. Yeah. So Vidya, let's talk about data for a moment. How do we measure overall cardiometabolic health?
Yeah. There are the AHA and other organizations have given us a lot of tools to measure, to come up with scores that help us clinically manage patients. But the best way to think about this is, so we said, hey, there are this, set of 4 conditions that go together under cardiometabolic disease. Then, so we get the data about those 4. What's somebody's cardiovascular health status like? What's their liver health like? What's their kidney health like? Then we said they share a set of common risk factors. So what's the weight like? So it's not just weight, but body fat, waist circumference, and those definitions have recently changed. And then blood pressure, blood glucose, and lipids. So we get that data. And then last but not the least, data about lifestyle, right? Eating, activity, exercise, sleeping, management of stress. So as you can imagine, it's a lot of data. It's a big variety, and some of it tends to be high volume, especially the lifestyle data. It's coming at us like on a daily basis. So what we do within our organization is pair up a human with computing power of machines, right? So help analyze the data for insights, mine it, so that those insights can be placed in the hands of somebody like Michelle to say, okay, here's what you need to know about somebody you're going to talk to, so that she can now do an even more powerful job at what she already does and really navigating and helping this person, move towards outcomes. So we leverage a lot of data, and this is what I meant by even personalizing care, right? So it starts, and you have to continue that personalization journey to really move somebody. And then, like I said, there are ways to score people on a cardiometabolic health spectrum. I don't know if you are aware, but if I'm right, only 11% of the population actually has zero cardiometabolic health, risk. So it's something that we can all work on. Michelle, what would you say? What have you seen in practice with respect to how you've used data?
I think the amount of data that we can get as a clinician, especially through Teladoc Health, and like you said, partnering with other facets, I'm able to see how active is a member. If they want to send me a picture of their food, I'm able to look at their food log, right? So that's 2 of the facets. I'm able to go with them, obviously look at their device data. I can see their blood pressures, the timestamp.
Sure.
For blood sugar devices, they can even tell me, okay, there was an elevated read. They were stressed out that day. Like Grace just said, life was lifing. They had a high read, and now I have a little bit more information into that. So before I'm already calling up a member, meeting even for the first time, that data is so helpful to kind of build that connection with the member, right? They're more than numbers, and they're able to tell me that, which I just think is a really neat program. And like you said, we even, when the mental health component of it, just the app, you put how you're feeling in there, and it sends you insights specific to you, and you wouldn't believe how many members share their action plans and insights with me. It's just really neat. Yeah.
Grace,
I have the
additional
pleasure.
thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I have the pleasure of talking to clients and prospects about our amazing coaches and how we are able to bring that data to life with that human touch, right? So being able to connect those dots, where we've got the data, they can see it, but sometimes, it's not as obvious. And so having that ability to connect with a coach to help make those lifestyle behavior modifications that are sustainable, that are realistic, that address those risk factors, and that all important mental health piece is so invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Do you both, and especially you, Michelle, in dealing with, when you work with patients, are you able to see that it's a lot easier these days to address mental health and well-being than it used to be probably even a decade ago? Like there is greater awareness that the body and mind are connected, even as consumers, as patients, which makes your job somewhat easier. Because I remember, back 15, 20 years ago, coaches would typically only talk about A1Cs and blood glucose and not so much about, so how are you feeling? How are you doing today? What would you say?
Oh my gosh, you nailed it. I mean, it used to feel like a numbers game, right? And now one of my shticks is telling somebody I can see your data, but you're more than numbers. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
most common things that come up is, let's say we're trying to navigate, sure, why a blood sugar or blood pressure was high. We find out that it was stress. And then immediately someone says, well, I need to be, active for 150 minutes every single week, but we find out that they're strapped for time. That's
Mm-hmm.
adding stress to it. So we're looking at one, how do we deal with you as the whole person? You were telling me about your mental health. You are stressed out. Now, how do we make a goal realistic for you? Right? It's not cookie cutter. It can't be.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, even with cardiometabolic health, it's every single person is different. And that's no different than the goals that we set with our members. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, to answer your question, 100% mental health is something that comes up with most of my coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I when I do the diabetes demo and the glucometer, we ask they have the opportunity to select a feeling tag, and stressed out is one of them, right? Diabetes distress is real, especially when you have comorbid conditions. So being able to pick up on that pattern and trend is something that we're able to do with the data, and then serve up members in a reminder that there's breathing exercises, meditative exercises, lots of resources to help with that stress, which
Mm-hmm.
can negatively and positively impact, right? Blood sugars, blood pressure, all the things.
Yeah. There are so many of these. I feel like everybody knows. People know, like, or, even our family who are not in healthcare, like they all know. But sometimes it's important to just call it out, to articulate it so that it really resonates. And then they can start to make that very obvious connection between how they're feeling and what the blood glucose or blood pressure is looking like. Right. And my parents are a classic example. They'll check their blood pressure when they just return from a walk and they hurriedly sit down and go, and I tell them to just relax for some time and you can do it, or they would want me to check it for them and they want to know when I'm going to check it for them. So they start working themselves up and the numbers are all over the map. But yeah, so it's simple things like daily small tweaks that we can make. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. White coat syndrome is real, evidently still within family too.
Very much so. Very much so. I know that there's an equivalent of a white coat vet syndrome because we took our fur baby, excuse me, recently,
Wow.
because she's on some medication that might increase. It was through the roof, and you could see she was trembling. But of course, with her, it was obvious. And so, but at home, she's like calm as cucumber. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I just love it, right? Pets and a lot of members even, right? We try to incorporate the whole family approach. You bringing up your dog, I had a member this morning. We were talking about, how do we create more activity? And I can hear the dog barking in the background. And I was like, well, do you take the dog for walks? And they said, yeah, well, maybe I could get an extra walk in, just 10 minutes with the dog, right? So it's
sure.
Encompassing what you have with you, which if it's a dog and you can take it for a walk, that counts as movement. Anyways, I hope your fur baby's okay. So
she's absolutely fine. Thank you. Yeah. On that, you went there, movement. So when we think of and one of you mentioned the 150 minutes, right? So there is exercise, there's activity, there's movement. And it's important to have all three of them because now new science shows that each of them has an impact on cardiometabolic health. So you might have gym rats like me exercising, every 6 days of the week. But if the rest of the day I'm just sitting, that doesn't do me a whole lot of good. So it's important to exercise. It's also important to be active as possible throughout the day. And it's also important to avoid sedentary behaviors. But if you must sit, which most of us have to because of work, every hour, get up And what I do is if I have the time, I'll quickly do 200 steps, or I do some squats or some calf raises. So do something, because I'm glad you brought this up, because these are all now seen to be having their own impact on cardiometabolic risk. Simple things like just getting up, stretching, moving can go a long way.
Yeah. Vidya, there's another topic that's getting a lot of buzz, and that's sleep and the connection that has with cardiometabolic health. How much sleep do we need to avoid cardiometabolic risk?
If I knew the answer, I'd be like a millionaire, a zillionaire. Well, so think about it. So sleep is critical for good psychological health, psychological balance, physiological health. It's very important for hormonal regulation within the body. It's very important for immune responses in the body. It regulates a lot. Yeah. Magic number, I don't know, but they say 7 to 9 hours. But it's not just the quantity, it's the quality and it's the regularity, meaning it should be good quality 7 to 9 hours sleep. You should also be going to bed at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every morning, right, the next morning. So that counts too. Broken sleep, poor quality sleep, reduced sleep definitely has been shown to have a negative impact on cardiometabolic health. But again, something that we can easily work on.
Yeah, very good. That was a question from our audience, and we have another one. What are the early signs and symptoms of liver or heart dysfunction that individuals can recognize on their own? Are there any of those that they may be able to recognize on their own?
Possibly, but when one is diagnosed with high blood pressure, right, that's right there. So those are they're called risk factors for a reason, because they're like, think of those as building blocks of a disease, if you will. So, being diagnosed with high blood pressure, being diagnosed with, diabetes, those are all telling you something about those symptoms. I mean, those conditions. There may be obvious symptoms and signs like difficulty in breathing, not being able to. I had a friend 2 weeks ago say, I used to be able to run a whole lot on the treadmill. Now I'm not able to. Something's going on. And I tried the elliptical. It was fine. But then the Stairmaster, not so much. So you will start to notice differences in how, you're performing with day to day. But most importantly, the things that one can get checked frequently include blood pressure. And so, that is very telling. Again, keeping an eye on the weight. I think that's another one. But, symptoms of liver disease are a whole another, it takes a while, but sure. Fatty liver disease in and of itself may not manifest in the form of symptoms, but when the liver starts to get damaged, you start to see symptoms and signs. But there are, again, now ways to check it early on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Got you. And I love these questions coming in from members. And with that also, I love when members share with me their health journey wins. It's not always about wins, right? If there's struggles, we address those. But when the wins come through, it's the reason I do my job, right? It's the reason people show up for coaching. But that being said, I know that many of our members, some of them being caregivers, have achieved significant health outcomes. For example, by following our approach to cardiometabolic health management. So with it, could you talk about some of the success cases that you've seen personally throughout your time here at Teladoc Health?
Mm-hmm. What I love about how we do this at Teladoc is that we actually invite our members, who we call members, consumers, patients, we call them in. We bring them in to hear their stories, good, bad, and ugly, right? And so it helps us know what's working, what's not working. So there are numerous stories, and I've seen many of them myself. Listen, caregivers, in my mind, are an under-acknowledged, under-recognized group of us, right? And I know that pretty much all of us have either been in that situation or will be in the situation. I think it's one of those unavoidable ones, taking care of an elderly parent, taking care of a child. Studies show that, more than half, 50% of caregivers see a decrease in their own health status once they get on a caregiving journey. But you talk to them, 95, 99% of them will tell you they would do it all over again, right? It's one of those. So what does this tell us? To me, and caregiving, as much as you'd want to plan and prepare for it, when it hits you big time. So let's be very real about it. It's like this, not like taking an exam. It's like it hits you. There are things you haven't even considered. But there are things that we can do to I guess, strengthen ourselves, body, mind, and soul, towards becoming care. So it's like that oxygen mask analogy in an airplane, right? Put your mask on first before you put the mask on to somebody else. So mentally, knowing that this is going to be demanding, seeking help, and learning how to develop those skills around resilience and confidence and navigating adversity. Feeling connected is another one that caregivers want, right? And they want to be connected to their family, to friends, to the provider community, enabling that. And at the same time, also knowing that it's going to be demanding, that perhaps you can go out for a 5 mile walk every day, but maybe you can do 2 miles certain days. Maybe you can go for a swim in another day. So still learning, working with coaches like Michelle to say, okay, how do I need to adjust my day to day so that I'm not letting this go by the wayside? Learning, continuing to eat right, focusing on exercise, sleeping as well as one could, and being able to manage stress. I think those are all very important. So to me, when I think of caregiving situation, important to understand, it's one of those, it's going to come at us, know that it will, but know that you can also do a lot to take care of yourself even before and even when you're on that journey. You asked about examples. Gosh, there are so many. One member who, she came to us for uncontrolled diabetes. We worked with her along the way, discovered that she was also dealing with anxiety. And that came through conversations with a coach like yourself, right? Where she built that trusted relationship and then started to open up a little bit and a little bit more. And then once she felt very comfortable, like you got to see all of the different angles at which health and life or lifing was happening to her. And so we worked with her on all of those things. And then she, in turn, was taking care of family members. She was a very active member of the church. She was actually providing care as a caregiver to people outside of her family. So enabling her to do that and at the same time empowering her to take care of her own health was one of the most beautiful stories that I have seen. Yeah. You've probably seen a whole bunch in your career, haven't you, Michelle?
Oh my gosh, I had a member, and it was a difficult session. But I think the reason this stood out to me is, with the caretaking aspect of things, she was explaining, she was so upset that she couldn't get her blood sugars down. And then, she was mentioning some of the reasons why. I prodded a little bit, and it comes to find out she's a caretaker. She works full time. She has 4 kids, and she's wondering why she can't bring these numbers down. So sometimes I even said, okay, well, what if everything you just told me, your best friend told you that? What would you say? You'd probably go, you're dealing with a lot. You got to work on you a little bit, right? So having that outside perspective, we're so hard on ourselves. It's go, do, especially when you're a caregiver. That time for yourself, it gets smaller and smaller. But having an outside perspective tell you, that's a lot. Okay, for you to do and wear 7 different hats, you got to wear your own too. So it is the caregiving aspect of things. That is a lot of our members. They have kids. They are taking care of elderly parents. The list, I could have a whole nother session on just caregiving, but it 100%. Is very frequent that it comes up.
Yeah, it's a sandwich generation too, right? Just as another layer, right? Taking care of your elderly parents, yourself, your kids, grandkids, potentially. Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Right. And it's real. That's life. That's life. And but we can all do it. We do it. And I always find it fascinating that most people say, yeah, sure, I'll do it again. Right. Yeah. But we know a lot now. And so I think there's so much to be said about prevention that I think it's that uncalled upon tool in our toolkit that we can just muster up to really face any of these situations.
That's right. Yeah. So Vidya, switching gears to a new trend that we're seeing, GLP-1s for weight loss specifically. This is a hot topic these days. What is your view on their role in cardiometabolic health?
Fantastic class of drugs. We've used them. I mean, they've been in use for type 2 diabetes and such for quite some time. And of course, more recently, we're seeing the tremendous impact they have on weight. We just talked about cardiometabolic health being more than just about weight. So there's weight and there's everything else. And so great tool in the toolkit, yet they won't take the place of other things that one needs to do to manage lifestyle, such as we talked about exercise, we talked about sleep, we talked about, other behaviors. When you take something like exercise, for instance, I'm talking actual exercise. When you go do about strength training, they strengthen the muscles. Why do you need strong muscles? We're just talking of cardiometabolic health. Good, strong muscles boost your metabolism. They help your body use food for energy. Good, strong muscles also protect joints and bones from diseases later on in life. So it's important to keep the muscle strong. A known side effect of GLP-1s is depletion of muscle tissue. Right. So it means that you have to now really focus on it, really work on strength training, enhance the protein intake in your diet. So the point I'm trying to make is it's not one or the other. It's an augmentation process. And when we think of GLP-1s within our organization, we take a very methodical, thoughtful approach, like who needs it, when, for what, and for how long. And then how do we work with them on all of these lifestyle behaviors as well. So new promising indications that those drugs are being studied for. So there's more to come. And I think we're definitely seeing the role that they play with respect to weight loss. But I don't think of, at an event I was in, one of my fellow panelists said, if there's a pill I could bottle, that would be exercise. So think about it, right? So there's a role for all of these lifestyle factors. What would you both say?
True. Yeah, very true. I mean, our approach to GLP-1s is definitely lifestyle behavior modification, right? Helping them see that all those things you mentioned, right? Sleep, nutrition, physical activity, helping them understand what to expect when they are on those medications, but also helping them set them up for success for when they come off the medications, so that they can sustain those outcomes. So thinking about all those things, mental health inclusive.
Agreed. Yeah, and weight gain post the medication is a given. So therefore, it's even more important to adopt these healthy lifestyle behaviors so that you can keep that weight from coming back, at least not as much.
Exactly. And it's so interesting. I mean, these medications they work really well for a lot of members. And it's interesting to have the conversation. A member will say, well, what happens when I go off these? And I go, well, we work on eating healthy, we work on physical activity, managing sleep and stress. And honestly, my answer to them is if you go off of them, these are still important lifestyle factors. They were before the medication, while you're on the medication, and after. I mean, Vidya, like you mentioned, there is protein intake is important in the strength training component, which is interesting. With strength training, you mentioned it does a multitude of things. It increases your metabolism. I mean, it keeps your body stronger for longer. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, when I mention strength training, they immediately go, well, I'm not going to the gym. I'm not lifting barbells. And that's not what we're talking about, right? It's using your muscles. I mean, I had a member who didn't even have weights at home, so we use soup cans, right? It's just something to get those muscles utilized, which our next question, I feel like, we kind of tackled it a little bit, sprinkled throughout the conversation, but people did want to know, what are some simple steps that viewers can take in their daily lives to improve their cardiometabolic health? So really, I think focusing on the lifestyle factors.
Yeah. I'll tell you how I've approached it, and it's worked for the most part. And I've had my, own ups and downs and have to figure out, okay, how to deal with it. But what I would say is when it comes to lifestyle changes, the best approach is do what you can, when you can, where you can. So get away from this all or none approach. I used to be that. Either I'm going for a 5-mile jog, or I just, oh gosh, there was no time, and then there's nothing. Like I've not done anything, right? Instead, what if I have 30 minutes in the morning and maybe I get a couple of miles in, or I do something else, and then maybe find another 15 minutes later on, right? Getting away from same goes for food. Either super healthy all 3 meals, or like you're binge eating and eating the wrong stuff. No, there's no need to do that. Let's find a happy medium. When it comes to eating, if you eat right 85% of the time, that's fantastic. That's hard enough, and that's fantastic. I'm sure, Michelle, you are probably much more equipped to talk about that than I. But simple, small changes that are doable, that are achievable. And then when I instead of just big milestones, I also like to do mini micro milestones. So it's not just 5 pounds down or 10 pounds down or X number down by X percentage. It's the smaller milestones to me that matter a lot. And I would say observe not just what it does to the weight scale and the blood pressure cuff. I mean, maybe for some time you have to actually set that weight scale aside, but more importantly, observe what it does to you as a person. How do you feel? You were going there, right? And so how do you feel? Are you more energetic? Are you able to spend more time outdoors? Are you able to play? Are you able to, hike a trail without any difficulty, right? Observe what it does and let it sink in. And then use that to now take that very next step. And so kind of build on successes is how I look at it. And reward yourself with, maybe it's a beautiful experience. Maybe you go to a concert. That's what I do. So I'm really telling you my life story, right? But don't punish. Don't punish yourself. I mean, I go off, like I travel or something happens, and even if one goes off a path, you can always come right back. But don't beat yourself up over it. So it's a very simple, realistic approach to lifestyle modification, as opposed to here's how you should do it. There's no should. It's more about realizing what works for you, what you're comfortable with, where you start to see the changes, and what those changes make you feel, and start to build on that. Michelle, I'm sure you have stories to tell here.
Well, you are nailing a lot of the things that I go over with members. The first thing that you said is 85% eating healthy. I mean, that's most of the time you are eating healthy. And there's so many times it's the T word. Someone will say, well, Coach Michelle, or it's not a treat to them. They'll say, I cheated. And I'm like, what do you mean? How'd you cheat? And they're like, oh, well, I had an ice cream after dinner. And I go, okay, when's the last time you had ice cream? Oh, not, last week, but I cheated and I shouldn't have. One ice cream in a week after this person, in the example that I'm using, ate pretty healthy the entire day. So what I work with people is, like you said, if you beat yourself up, that starts to segue you into that all or nothing mindset. I have to do good all the time, and that one little ice cream I had derailed me, and now I'm going to eat this way for a few days, right? So trying to, instead of saying that I've cheated, I've been bad, that's an exhausting mentality to have with your health, right? So I treated myself. I had the ice cream. I acknowledge the fact that I had the ice cream. Tomorrow, I'm going to start my day over again. There's so many times that there's just like this negativity. Someone goes on vacation and they said that they ate at the buffet. Well, yeah, you were on vacation. There's a big difference, unless I work with a lot of members who travel for work, right? So there's exceptions. It's got to be individualized yet again. But what you said also, mini goals. That is my philosophy with coaching. If someone says my overall goal is to lose 50 pounds. Okay, well, that doesn't just happen, right? So what are the small realistic changes that we can make, right? If you don't have 45 minutes to go outside and come back all sweaty because you got to start your day, but you have 10 minutes and your lunch break at work, let's use those 10 minutes. All right, so you nailed it, Vidya. It's looking at small realistic changes that set you up down the road towards the goal that you want to get to.
Yeah. Can I just react to a couple of things you said? So I have a sweet tooth, and people who know me know this, right? But what the good thing is that I don't buy or make anything and stock it in my home. But when you put me in front of a plate of, let's say, brownies, right? I would say 60% of the time I resist the temptation, but when I do want to give in because it's otherwise been okay, I take a knife and I go slice a brownie and take a small sliver. Of course, I leave behind a poor-looking, bad-looking brownie on the on the buffet table, but I don't care because I want to believe that there are more people like me. I think that's the other thing. We all feel like just because bagels come in full, muffins come in full, brownies are served the way they are, that you cannot, or even ice cream, that you cannot take a smaller portion, because all my mind is saying in this case is you want to taste the brownie, not you want to gobble a whole brownie. So I don't deny it that. And so I do this quite often, especially over the holidays, like when, holidays or some of my kids are home, there will be a lot of this around. So the knife is a fantastic tool to just take a sliver and then just move away from it. Same goes for anything else that I know is not the great processed food. Don't deny, but do that. And then what you said about activity and travel. So I travel a lot, but here's how I look at exercise and travel. Every hotel these days has a fitness center. Where on earth do you have your dwelling and a fitness center under the same roof? It's not in your, unless you have a home gym, that's great. But for most of us, we have to commute to get to a gym. We actually have to plan it, schedule it, commute, go to the gym, come back, shower, like you said. But in a hotel, everything's in the same building. So literally there's no excuse to not exercise. And so, those of you that travel with me, I mean, you'll see me at 4 p.m., like before the evening session and at the end of the day session, go squeeze in a workout. And so there are simple things that we can do, but we just have to get comfortable. There are no rules. That's what I'm saying. I make my own rules, and I'm very conscious of what I need to do, but I'm never all the time successful. That's okay. No big deal. Right.
Yeah. So everything in moderation, be kind to yourself. And I got to start packing gym clothes for when I go and travel to hit the gym. I got to do that.
Next time we'll do it together. How about
that? Okay. That would be fun. I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
All right. So for organizations looking to better support their population's health needs, what type of strategies should they be considering when optimizing care?
So you're talking for organizations, including us, I would say. So everything we just talked about, these understanding of cardiometabolic health, cardiometabolic diseases, the risk factors, and the role of every individual lifestyle factor in addressing those. The science behind all of that is evolving on a daily basis. It's evolved so much in just the last decade that we know a lot more today than we did a decade ago. It's going to be that much more exponential in the coming years. So what does that mean? It means that those of us in healthcare have to, especially those of us in the, who provide care, who take care of patients, and who focus on everything from prevention to management, have to find a way to take that science and embed it into our products and services. So at Teladoc, for instance, we have a team that's focused on just monitoring these developments in science. And when I say science, it's not just the clinical components, but it's also all the things we talked about. What's the role of nutrition? What do we know today that we didn't know 10 years ago? What's the role, do carbohydrates behave the same way in Michelle as they do in me? Today we know they don't. A slice of bread can be very different for her, and it could be totally something different for me. So bottom line is finding a way to take the science and translating that into products and solutions, because that's the only way the benefit reaches the patients. Otherwise, it's just science that's not translated. That's probably the first and foremost. The second is, like I said earlier, taking a long-term view. Very important, don't get me wrong, to focus on near-term goals, to absolutely bring that blood pressure down as soon as you can, to start working towards losing weight, to controlling blood glucose, but equally important to focus on the long-term cardiovascular, cardiometabolic health outcomes. Taking a very holistic view to that. So we talked about mental health quite a bit. So kind of embedding management of mental health and well-being alongside managing physical health and physical health conditions. That I think is critical. It's also important, I believe, for organizations to figure out how to personalize the care. And at the same time, address this at the population level, because it's important, like you said, when you're sitting across from one person at a time and looking at their data to personalize. At the same time, we also know that there are population level attributes that we can take into consideration and quickly start to do some things that can help large populations of people. So as organizations, I believe we should be definitely on that journey. Last but not the least, it takes a village. So partnerships across the healthcare ecosystem. So if there's any organization out there that's thinking, oh yeah, we can do it all. I'm sorry, I don't think so. I think, and I would say the same for us. We're partnering quite a bit, and for this reason, because we don't have it all. There are some entities that are closer to consumers. There are some entities that do something better. So it's about partnering across the ecosystem to really enhance the value that we can bring to patients.
Yeah. Right. It is so interesting. We are an all-encompassing Teladoc company, right? We do digital healthcare, and it's just even you saying we can't do it all. We need partnerships, right? And we see it day in and day out. I have a member who links their Fitbit, right? I have another member who uses maybe a CGM, right? And they're still able to use our devices, and we can talk it through with other devices that they get on their own, right? We're not saying don't, use a Fitbit. Use a Fitbit if you have it. That's awesome. Keeps you accountable. I'm able to see your data. So just the integration, I think, is really cool. That being said, there is a holiday coming up. So Valentine's Day is coming up soon.
Is it a holiday?
I don't know. Is it? I feel like I have to do something on
a
it.
Hallmark holiday? Is that?
There you go. Yes, Hallmark
holiday.
holiday, which I need to figure out what I'm doing for that. But this is a very fitting conversation, right? Cardio, heart health, Valentine's Day. You mentioned something about keeping the heart happy. In addition to keeping it healthy, can you elaborate on what like a happy, healthy heart might look like? And it kind of goes similar with what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it looks very happy, right? So we talked a lot about what we can do to keep the heart healthy, right? To help it do its job of purifying the blood and then sending blood across the body. But, there are simple things. When I think of things that make the heart happy, as they say, happiness is a state of mind. To me, happiness is also a state of the heart. Simple things like exercising the gratitude muscle, right? Being grateful for what you have, what you get to do, who you are, who you have in your life. If possible, doing that on a daily basis or at the very least a weekly basis. Loving, right? Loving one another unconditionally, loving our fur babies, plants, being proximal to nature, doing things that you love. For me, that happens to be learning music and singing, um, helping one another, caregiving, taking care, volunteering, being kind about that, right? And that doesn't take a lot. It's just even saying something nice to somebody you might run into when you're out for a walk. These things have a, it's hard to describe abstract impact but they cause beautiful neurochemical reactions in the body, which are known to have a positive impact on cardiac health as well as metabolism. So calming oneself down, it reduces stress, it reduces blood pressure, keeps blood glucose in check. We can draw a straight line, right? But we don't need to. We know that they make us feel good and they do have an impact. And these are, I feel, easy things we can do on a daily basis without having to try too hard. I don't have to plan to be kind. I don't have to plan to just take a minute and say, this is what I get to do. This is what I'm grateful for, right? It's not an exercise. It's not 9 hours of sleep. It's a simple thing that we can do. So that's what I meant by, heart happy at the same time as being healthy.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear more about this singing you do. What instruments do you play? You mentioned music.
No, I sing. So I train.
Her
I
voice is
train
her
and
instrument.
yeah, but my voice is my instrument, so it's with me all the time. So you will see, but I sing everywhere, anywhere. I used to learn as a child. So I learned the South Indian classical form called Carnatic music. I tried to take to it when I was a kid, but lifing happened. I'm going to steal Grace's term. Life was lifing, and so med school happened. I'm like, oh gosh, I have no time. I made all kinds of excuses, but as I got older, it was a very deep-seated regret, and I wanted to do something about it. So almost to the day 5 years ago, I went back and started from scratch. I cannot tell you how it has changed my life. It's my meditation. It's my armor, my resilience technique. It's my go-to place when I'm very happy. I perform in small settings, and I don't care about making a mistake here or there. It doesn't matter. But as long as people are able to experience what I experience, I feel like that's great. I'm sharing, I'm giving. So it helps me in multiple ways. But most importantly, I think it's taught me that there's more to life than just a role, a career. It makes me whole. Let's put it that way. So what about you? Do you have passions? So it's not a hobby, it's a passion for me. So what about you both?
Yeah, Grace, I want to hear from you.
So right now I'm into rehabbing. I've been obsessed with like HGTV for many years. And so my husband and I actually bought like our first property a couple years ago. And now we've got a second one. It's a 1923 Dutch colonial that we're rehabbing. So putting some sweat equity into it, but also now the decorating side of it is a lot of fun.
Very gratifying, isn't it? I'm an HGTV addict too, especially in the evenings. That's how I fall asleep too. I watch so much of that. Yeah.
But then my husband, we come home now and he's like, okay, literally I've been in this like all day, no more. And so I have to like watch it by myself now because he's like, this is too much.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Well, we have a couple of questions that did come from the audience. So let's see here. What would your advice be to someone who feels overwhelmed by the complexity of cardiometabolic health? Is there maybe a good first step that someone can take to kickstart their health journey, right? So when we think of the big picture, that is overwhelming, kind of takes your breath away. So I think the question is, how do we kickstart that healthy behavior? Little
Yeah,
steps.
100% can totally empathize. I'd say don't think too much about the big picture. Um, just look at what you can control. If you were to draw concentric circles of what you can control to what you can probably control a little bit to what you really cannot control, focus on what you can control. And to me, it all comes down to those lifestyle behaviors that we talked about. Let's take diet is if it's optimal, that's fantastic, but perhaps set up a conversation with a coach like Michelle or someone else in your circle to say, what do you think about my diet? Is there anything I could be doing differently? Look at your activity levels in addition to your exercise levels. Look at how you're sleeping. So look at what you can modify and then go after those, and then definitely seek care with a primary care provider so that you can get things like weight, blood pressure, the lab work done on an annual basis so that you know how those metrics are, looking and what you need to work on. Usually there's a telltale sign at some point, and then that will only help you adjust. It's not a bad thing to find out that your blood pressure is slightly high. It's actually good, if you ask me, because now you're able to do something about it and you can start to make small modifications in your life to kind of bring those numbers down. So start somewhere. I wouldn't worry about back to your house rehabbing. It's daunting when you think of, oh my God, I've got to fix this whole 1925 thing up and it needs to look like this. But maybe I can just pick the small corner, like Grace said she did in the basement, and beautify it to make it what I need to be for that particular purpose. That's a great start. So similarly, in that big daunting scenario, listen, life will happen and lifing will happen. Grace is going to kill me after this, but lifing will. But the reality is, we can all start somewhere. There's something that is so within our control, and it's absolutely okay if you're great at it for 4 days, 5 days of the week, and the remaining you slip up, no problem at all, right? So don't beat yourself up, reward, and partner with your doctor, partner with a coach if you have access to one, and that's what I would say. And pay attention to your mental health and well-being, because there is the, hey, I need to do this factor, and there's the doability factor, but there's also this component which is I want to do it, right? There's the need to do, but I want to do it. And why do I want to do it? And that's all about, that mental health and well-being and having a sense of purpose. So yes.
Yeah.
What would you say? What would you say?
The fact that you want to repeat something that I said, like, I'm very happy about that. Okay, so we have another question. This one, thinking about yourself, right? This is a tough one because you do have to want to do this, but the question is, how can I support my loved ones who's feeling unmotivated to address their cardiometabolic health issues?
A story of my life. That's what I would say. So we all have those people. I would say from personal experience, nagging, scare tactics, threatening, none of those work. Sticks don't seem to work. Carrots seem to work. So for me, I would say have them, like Michelle was saying, what's the sense of purpose? Like what's your ultimate goal, right? Like, what do you want? And we've heard so many of these, in meeting with members and patients, some people, in their 60s and 70s, perhaps starting on some of these activities. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. That's a fantastic goal to have. So with your loved one, I think that's the most important thing, whether it's a child, whether it's your spouse or a parent or somebody else, is to say, what would you like to be? And nobody wants, I say that health is the best gift you can give to your family. So try to unravel that when you're working with a loved one. So what is their relationship with the family? What do they want to be and become? And then go from there. And then again, we talked about activity, we talked about food, we talked about sleep. You can't address them all at the same time. Pick one and make a small change, and then move to another and kind of toggle across multiple ones. But again, seek help when necessary. This is not rocket science. It's just a matter of having the conversation and really knowing, personalizing what might work for some. Like, nobody needs to push me to go to a gym 6 days of the week, to work out 6 days of the week. But there are people in my family where that is not the case. So sometimes I take them along. I said, hey, I need company. Can you come along? Let's go to the gym together. Let's do XYZ together, all the way through to, it's beautiful out today. Let's go for a walk. So finding things of that nature. So that's what I would say. Michelle, I mean, I'm sure you have your own thoughts.
Yeah, I love what you said. And one thing also, as the member who may be the person who is motivated for their family member who is lacking motivation, to give yourself grace. You can't create motivation for somebody, right? It's definitely
Right.
got to come from within. But like you mentioned, I'm going to go for a walk, come with me. I see it time and time again. Members are trying to combat their own health. And it's just, they want their family to be healthy. So it comes from a place of love. Just don't beat yourself up if you just can't find the motivation for somebody.
Mhm.
What I will say is that supporting, you want your family to be healthy. So one way to look at it is, I have a member, and let's say that her husband was doing the cooking and it wasn't the healthiest. And, she said, well, hey, I'm going to make dinner 2 nights of the week. I'm going to take that off your plate. When in reality, she was making a little bit healthier dinner options and he's eating it, right? So it's little ways that you
That's
can kind of
brilliant.
help somebody
Mhm.
out without
Mhm.
necessarily saying, you need to cook this way, you need to eat that way.
Mhm.
Imagine, regardless of health, someone telling you what to do, what's our first response? Hands up, not doing it, right? We get defensive.
Correct.
So
Mhm.
it is little trickle ways to show love, that isn't forcing someone to make a change. Now, I
Mhm.
also hear what someone's saying. Well, they're like, what if they never change? What if they're never motivated? And again, that is something that has got to come from the other person. But you
Mhm.
trying to put in behavior changes in your own life can really, really pay off.
Mhm.
One of my sisters will never go to the gym, and that's okay. But you know what she likes to do? She likes to go hiking. Okay. So our hangouts aren't going to be going to a restaurant. They're not going to be going, and doing something that isn't movement. If she'll go hiking, that's what I'm going to do with her. Right. So it
Mhm.
just depends on what the person likes to.
Mhm.
What
It
about you,
brings up
Grace? I mean, we all have that family member, right? So,
yeah. Go ahead, Grace.
yeah.
We do. I mean, I love what you said, Vithya, about the best way that you can show your family member that you love them is like through good health. And so like that's really super motivating. I agree. I don't necessarily have a family member, but I have a friend that we've tried to like work out together or it's not about the gym. Like the gym is not the thing, but like the
Mhm.
walks, going for
Mhm.
walks together and just being
Mhm.
able to kiki,
Mhm.
and just talk and catch up is like the greatest thing ever.
Mhm.
So I look forward to, weather permitting also gets in the way, but it's a great time to just catch up with your friends and talk, and you can kind of do both. Do both.
Yeah.
Get healthy, walk and talk.
Yeah, you can provide companionship and that support in so many ways, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Like like you said, go for walks together, do things together, but also understand where the person's coming from, and try to get them to see the other side of the coin in a nice way. But it's not easy. I'm by no means saying that it's easy, but it's doable. And like you said, there's extrinsic motivation and then there's intrinsic motivation. I might throw $500. Okay, come with me. Go to the gym 3 days a week and you'll get X. It only lasts for so long. But intrinsic motivation is what really keeps us going. Like, why do you want to do what you want to do? Like, why do you need to be healthy, right? And answering that question will help us get much further.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the intrinsic versus, external motivators. Again, going like being told what to do. I'll have so many members, and neither here nor there what was actually said. They'll say, I can never eat a carb again. That's what I was told. That's what they told me. And that's an external motivator, and one that we work on with as coaching that's probably not realistic. And then digging into, well, what do you want to see change? It's just be you coming for within with the goal versus somebody else. And honestly, something just came to mind for myself, like talking about a family member who maybe isn't motivated. It's also, are you putting on your own glasses onto them? I'm a jogger, and I asked my husband to come jogging, and he did it once and never did it again. So I just figured he was not motivated to get cardio in. And then months later, he's like, it wasn't fun to jog with you because you went fast and you didn't, it's just you pushing your own agenda on
Correct.
other people's
Correct.
health.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that just came to mind. Maybe I'll jog slower with him in a couple months. We'll see.
Yeah, I get the
But
same exact feedback from my family too. Same thing. Very
I
yeah.
love
evident. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle and Vithya. Thanks to all who tuned in today. Keep an eye out for more information about cardiometabolic health on our social media channels this month and beyond. Until next time on Healthier Ever After, take care, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye now.